Hi, my name is Stivad from CMS Gaming. In this very special episode, I'm going to be covering some of the PAL-only games on the Super Nintendo, so games that were only released in Europe and overseas in Australia. So without further ado, let's get to it. We've already gone over this game in one of our first videos on the channel, so I'll be brief. Asterix, developed by Infogrames, is a pretty generic looking platformer based on the similarly named comics and was for some reason cancelled in North America. The game controls alright, and I found the music to be simple yet relaxing. Where the trouble starts, however, is with Asterix's very short attack range, bland enemies and lackluster level design. You can get the game pretty cheap though, and it's definitely worth it if you're a fan of the franchise. The Fireman has become pretty well known throughout the last few years, and with good reason. The title and box art may look pretty generic, but don't let the game's shallow exterior fool you. This game offers some unique gameplay and very clean looking sprites and animations. As you might expect, you put out as many fires as you can and navigate your way through several buildings that are on fire. There is some nice chit chat between levels that provides some relief from the constant flamey action. All in all, definitely worth checking out. The first thing that jumps out at you from this relatively obscure game is its strange art style. I don't really like the look of it myself, but if you're into airbrush backgrounds and NES looking sprites, you might find this enjoyable. The Humans is a single board puzzle game in which you control cavemen and need to reach a certain goal before the time runs out. Pretty simple. Switching between cavemen and letting them interact with each other is also pretty easy, but moving them around can take a long time and takes away from the momentum of the game. Nothing really special to see here, although you might want to pick up this game if you're really into puzzle games on the SNES, as it isn't the most expensive title. I mostly know the Might and Magic games from my youth playing them and the Hero series on computer. Much like in those games, in the SNES version, you start off choosing your class and divvying up your stats. This adventure RPG throws you into a fantasy-driven world through a first-person perspective. Navigating through these lands is done in a style reminiscent of Doom and can be quite disorienting at times. Combat is turn-based and can get real tactical. Graphics and gameplay, while quite different from anything else on the SNES, are in my opinion not really that fitting for this kind of platform. I believe the game would control much better on PC. I don't want to rag too much on Might and Magic 2, as I might give off the impression that I dislike it, which I definitely don't. Beyond initial expectations, it can be quite the immersive and enjoyable experience. All in all, you might be better off picking up one of the PC versions though, as the SNES one can be quite difficult to find. Civilian or Civilian is a game that isn't easily positioned in one category. It plays kind of like a shoot 'em up, but instead of a standard spaceship, you're an awesome fire-breathing dragon that is able to move throughout a pretty huge level and insinuate everything in its path. Boss battles are plentiful and some of them look really cool. The soundtrack is also pretty okay. Nothing special but highly enjoyable and featuring some very awesome standout tracks. One major beef with the game is how short it is, and that it's relatively easy. Definitely a hidden gem in my opinion, but hey, might not be your style, with loose cards running up to 50 euros. Waterworld, inspired by the Kevin Costner movie with a similar title, is a SNES game that at first glance has interesting and unusual gameplay mechanics, ambitious graphics, and even a moody and fitting soundtrack. Playing through this game, you come across some glaring flaws though. The levels where you're shooting other vehicles on the water and try to save hostages, although original, gets pretty confusing and tedious after a while. The platforming levels are, in my opinion, better, but disappoint with stiff controls and one of the worst AIs I've ever faced. It's very easy to be hit and you will die a lot. Also, simple stuff like climbing ladders is very difficult, and the fact that your weapon runs out of ammo doesn't help either. In the unlikely case you're actually a fan of the Waterworld movie, definitely pick this game up. If not, don't bother. So, there you have it guys, 6 games that were only released in Europe and Australia. I hope you learned something from this episode whether or not you live in the PAL region. And I also hope you join us next time when Obvious covers some more PAL-only SNES titles. Bye bye.